You're watching KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
Hi, I'm Omer.
I'm Larkin.
I'm Azalea.
I'm Tulip.
I'm Thaddeus.
And you're watching KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
We have been interviewing adults about issues and concerns of social justice on a special KMNH segment called It's Our Time. This is a special segment that we teens created as a result of the killing of George Floyd on May 25th. Since that time, we have researched, discussed, and even debated the many factors that lead to the many different social injustices that are happening right now. Happen's theme is, community is not just where you live, it's how you live with other people. And we know that change needs to happen in our neighborhood, downtown Cincinnati, Ohio, and across our nation. We have sought out potential solutions from interviewing activists, artists, and religious leaders in our community.
Tonight we bring you a very powerful interview from an artist and activist that once lived right here in Cincinnati and wrote this graphic novel about the 2001 killing of Timothy Thomas and the week of riots and protests in Cincinnati that happened as a result. The book is called 6 Days in Cincinnati. It just so happens that our Happen teens read this book in February during Happen's Black History Month celebrations, not even knowing or even imagining that we would revisit this book and meet the author now. You see, the author Dan MÉNDEZ Moore moved from Cincinnati to Minneapolis. He and his family, including a newborn, now live in the same neighborhood just 6 blocks from where George Floyd was murdered. So just to be clear, Daniel lived through and wrote about the Cincinnati riots and now happens to be living in the same neighborhood of the riots and protests in Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd. Tonight, Dan answers Omer's questions from the George Floyd Memorial at the corner of 38th and Chicago in Minneapolis. We would like to thank Downbound Books for coordinating this interview.
Thanks, Dan, for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, Omer. And I'm just here recording from 38th in Chicago here in Minneapolis. You can see behind me is actually where George Floyd was killed here, and it's become a memorial made by the community in his honor.
Can you explain your artwork and your focus on social justice?
So I've done comics for many years, and it's always something that I really enjoyed. And so obviously the more I got into organizing and the more I got into joining the fight against police brutality and worker rights, the more that I wanted to use my art to say something about those important issues to me.
Why did you choose art to be a part of what you do to make a difference in this world?
I think art is a really good way to get through to people who speak different languages, who come from different backgrounds, who are different ages. I think art is a universal language that everybody understands.
Did you have mentors or people that influenced your art when you were young?
I would say my biggest mentor that I can think of growing up was my art teacher, Wiley Ferguson, who took art very seriously when I think most of my teachers thought it was just kind of a way to screw around. Mr. Ferguson was very serious about the power of art. So he's definitely somebody who comes to mind.
Do you remember your first political cartoon, and how old were you?
So for me, political cartoons are any sort of cartoon that just make a statement about somebody in power. And I definitely remember making a lot of cartoons about my 7th grade Latin teacher that I really disliked. And so I think that might be my first political cartoons, was making fun of him with cartoons.
Your first book documents the riots in Cincinnati. You were here and now you're there, living just a few blocks away from where George Floyd was killed. Does it change the way you look at your book? If so, how?
That's a really good question. It does. I think when I made the book, I was much more focused on wanting to share the story that we all experienced at that time in Cincinnati, and really wanting to share the experience of people who really risked a lot and really fought to make sure that Timothy Thomas and his legacy wasn't forgotten by history. And you know, now this many years later in a different city with a very similar situation happening, it does just really make me think that my story was never just about Cincinnati. It was actually very much a story of people all over the United States. And so yeah, it makes me feel much less that the story was a local story about Cincinnati history and much more of a global story.
You now have 2 young children. How has being a father changed your art or focused for change?
That's also a very good question. This is my baby daughter right here. I think it has made the job feel much more important, right? Because it's not just about me, but it's about the next generation. And to me, that just seems even more important that, you know, us adults and us kids right now really fight to make sure the next generation has a better world to live in.
Can you describe what your neighborhood is like now, and what do you think it will be like a year from now?
I think right now, I mean, as you can see around, I don't know if you maybe want to, this, I would say this spot has been really the center of everything, and the neighborhood has fought really hard to make this a space of reflection, a space of protest. And I think very much that for the next year to come, the neighborhood is going to continue to be a place of protest, a place of reflection. And there's going to be a lot of challenges to make sure that we can confront these big problems like white supremacy and police brutality. You know, we've already got almost every house in the neighborhood has signs up in solidarity with the movement. So I think there's really strong backing, but there's also a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure that people want this just to go away and things to kind of go back to normal. And so it's going to be up to the neighbors here to make sure that things don't go back to normal, but they actually get better.
Thank you so much for being on KMNH, and thanks for what you do. You and your work means a lot to our teens here at Happen.
Well, first, I want to thank you for what you're doing and what everybody involved with Kids Making News Happen is doing, because that's really the first step, is coming together and figuring out how can we do things that are bigger than ourselves. And so I want to applaud you all for the work you do. And I think for other kids right now, it's just pay attention. It's look at the world around you and think about what are the things that seem unfair, and don't let anybody tell you that that's just how the way it is. You need to question everything, and you need to demand that the world is a safe and beautiful place for you to grow up in. And so I think that starts with just coming together, asking questions, and building community. So yeah, so thanks so much, you all, and look forward to seeing more of the show. This is a piece of art that was made in the middle of the road here, starting with George Floyd, and then going down, listing off name after name after name after name after name of people, of black people who have been victims of racist violence. You'll see Trayvon Martin there, and you can go, and it goes, 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 and it goes. This is the spot that George Floyd was killed by the officers. Has become a permanent memorial now. The community is completely taken and hold this intersection the whole time, made a lot of beautiful art and planted flowers, and really made a powerful space for reflection, memorial, and for protest. And many people might have seen the mural on the news. So the mural is just right on this side of the building here that you'll get to take a look at. It's right here. People made that kind of immediately after the murder, and As you can see, this is a historically black and still very much black-dominated business district here in Minneapolis, and so it's been a beautiful coming together of the community.
Cincinnati Public Schools have been distributing 22-pound boxes of fresh produce to students and their families. Each family is eligible for one box each week. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 11 a.m. to noon, you can pick up fresh fruits and veggies from any of the 21 schools in Cincinnati. It is first come, first served, and you will continue until the end of June. So get your produce and get caught up on your fruits and veggies this summer.
Rain is on the way for the week, so enjoy the sun while we have it. This is Tulip with the KMNH weather update.
We know money can't buy love or friendship, but it would mean the world to us if you became Happen's BFF. BFF of course stands for best friend forever, but here at Happen it also means a little something else. Business, family, and friends. All you need to do to become a BFF supporter is make a small donation. Just go to happening.org and click on the donate link. We thank all past, present, and future BFF donators.
Thanks for tuning in to KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen. KMNH is brought to you by Happen Inc. and is filmed in the Happen studio in Northside on the corner of Chase and Hamilton. I'm Omer. I hope that you've enjoyed this broadcast, and I hope that you will tune in again tomorrow for more Kids Making the News Happen.